Okay, so we're going to do the fitting now, and you can see I did a setup here where I have my victim on the coffee table. Make sure that it's something that can actually support the weight of a full-grown person. I have a chair next to her on the table so that she can steady herself, because you have to be on one foot. It's parts of the process, and you might need to be able to hold your balance. All right, so let's get into the process. Okay, we're going to start with the right foot and then do the left. But rather than say right and left, because it gets confusing for her and for me, I'm just going to go, let's start with this foot here. Lift this foot up, please. Now I'm going to put the foot in the center. And you want to have equal weight on both feet. Maybe just move this foot just a little bit. There we go. So I have room to get this in. Now I always start from the back. Hold the block perpendicular to the foot all the way around. You're going to see this better when I do the left foot on this side of the foot. So I'm going to go around the foot carefully all the way up and around the big toe and then stop. Now I'm going to overlap in the back and pull the block forward, lightly touching the foot so you're not compressing the foot. We want basically a shadow image. You don't have to get all the definition around the toes, just the length is good. There's a complete tracing. Okay, the next part is the girth measurements. So what we're going to do is put a little dot on the center of the ball of the foot and the fifth metatarsal head. So that's the first metatarsal head, and this is the fifth. Now what I'm going to do is transfer those marks down to the paper. And what I'm going to do is center the tape over those marks. Specifically, I'm going to center over where that mark meets the tracing. Okay, and then when you're going to do this, what I'm going to ask her to do is always keep the heel on the paper. Don't lift the heel up, only lift the forefoot so that I can slide the tape underneath, and that way she can sight herself back onto the tracing and not move the foot in relation to the tracing. Okay, lift up the forefoot, and I'm going to hold it up there for a minute while I move it back and forth. You see how you move it back and forth, you can tell you're centered. Okay, sight yourself back onto the tracing. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to mark the position of the tape, and that way I can take the same measurement with the shoe last and see how her foot, how the shoe last relates to her foot. Okay, now I'm going to mark that down. It's 245 millimeters. 245, I'm going to write it right there. Now we're going to go back to the instep measurement, keep the heel on the paper and lift the forefoot up. Okay, sight it back down. There we go. Now I have the tape parallel to the front. So you see it's parallel. It's not like straight across or angled. It's parallel to the forefoot. And I'm going right back to the back edge of the fifth metatarsal bone, which is going to come right across this part of the instep. It doesn't want to be way up here or down here, just right about at the highest point there. Now the first thing I'm going to do is mark the tape, because we're going to go do two measurements in this spot. So now what I'm going to do is bring the tape up, put the 0 mark on the top of the instep, and take the measurement again. That is 234. I'm going to put that measurement right on the other side of the foot there. Now the second measurement is up and over the top. And I'll explain that a little more when I actually take her foot off the tracing. Put the 0 mark. Let's use this to show it a little better maybe. I'm going to put the 0 mark right on the edge of the tracing. That didn't work. Okay, graphic. And I'm going to go across and take the measurement to the tracing line on the other side, and that ends up being 192. So I'm going to mark that down right here. Now the final measurement is from the base of the heel, and put the 0 mark again right up in the same place, and up around to there. And what I usually do is I'll go about halfway across that 0 mark line, and we've got 334, which is 340, and I'm going to write that on the back part. Now I'm going to have you just step off the paper, lift up your foot up completely off the paper, and you can put your foot back down. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is, when I actually do the calculation, I'll measure from here to here, and that's 73 millimeters, and I'll add it to that number, and then I'll get a complete volume measurement, which will also compensate for the air space under the foot. Okay, now we can put this foot back here, and we're going to do the other foot. And to do the other foot, just turn the paper over. That's why there's only one piece of paper, so you can do a tracing on each side. Okay, now I'm going to do again, start in the heel, and pull the tracing block forward, lightly touching the foot. Come around here, and I'll stop right there. The reason I do that is if you go this way, it doesn't pull easily. Ergonomically, it's very difficult. So again, I'm going to start overlapping in the heel, pull the tracing block forward, and around the toe. That looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to put the marks on the center of the first metatarsal head, the center of the fifth. Transfer that mark to the paper. Transfer that to the paper. As you're doing this, it's helpful to have the sample tracing next to it so you can see what you're supposed to be trying to accomplish here. Makes it a lot easier. Okay, now we're going to have you lift up the forefoot, center the mark over the tape over the marks, and sight yourself back down. Okay, that looks good. Mark the position of the tape so I can see how the shoe last relates to the foot. And we've got 243. So I'm going to write that next to it. Okay, lift up the forefoot. I'm going to slide it back. Okay, put it down again. Perfect. Now her arch is so high that the tape just wants to move. There's no contact in the middle of the foot, so you have to be careful to not let the tape move when you do it, when you take the measurement. Okay, good. Put the 0 mark on the top of the instep, come around. We've got 231. Now we're going to go from the 0 mark in the same place that the tape was before to the tracing line to the other side. And this one's a little bit less, 185. Now around the heel, base of the heel, so that the tape is touching the paper, but note she's not actually standing on top of the tape. And we've got 340 here. Okay, you can step off the paper, and that's it for the tracing. Next we're going to do the foot impression. Okay, now that we've completed the tracing, we're going to do a thin foam impression to verify that, so I can check to make sure that the tracing was done correctly. And it also helps me calculate the cleat position by using an actual impression of the foot rather than just a tracing. Okay, we're going to start with this foot right here. What we're going to do is line the foot up over the foam, maybe an inch or 2 inches from the back, inch and a half. And then what we're going to do is once we've got her lined up, I'm going to tell her to just go back to standing with equal weight on both feet, just like we did for the tracing. Equal weight on both feet. Then I'll gently push this down in. And that's it. Lift straight up. All right, that's done. Now we'll do the other foot. This one here. Okay, now stand with equal weight on both feet and step up. Okay, that's done. Now we're going to do the thicker foam, which is the foot impression that I'll use for the actual orthotic. So we're going to change the setup a little bit, and then we'll do that impression. First, I'm just going to show you the hand positions. One hand on top of the knee, and the other one on the forefoot. And the heel of your hand should go right across the metatarsal heads like that. Now when you do the other foot though, it's not going to work like that. It doesn't ergonomically, your hands don't fit, nothing works. So you have to switch hands. Okay? And it is easier to do all of this if you have someone elevated rather than kneeling on the ground. So now we're going to put the foam in there, and I'll show you how to do this. Okay, we're going to put some marks on the foot so that we know how deep we're pressing her foot into the foam. And you don't have to make these marks too big, just a little bit. You use the edge of that way you can tell how deep you're pushing her foot down. I'll put it on each side, but it'll probably work best to see it from the outside of the foot, like that, and like over here. And you see I put it, pretty far to the back. If you put it down here, you're going to end up going to not deep enough, and if you put it, so this way you can tell how deep you're going into the foam. The idea is to have the metatarsal heads all on the same plane. And the heel wants to float a little bit up. So if you lift your heel up just a little bit, about a half an inch or so, quarter inch, that's kind of what you want, because that way I can see the shape of that heel bone, which is really important. And the metatarsal heads will all be on the same plane, which is also very important. Okay. So we're going to put the foot in the opposite side of the box. And the reason for that is that this is out of the way now, and she can still sit in a nice natural position. I'm going to move the box back and forth until she's in a good, comfortable position. Got a 90 degree at the knee, and the knee is over the foot pointed straight forward. The first push, you have to push down simultaneously. What I want to do is watch that mark so that the mark is about a quarter of an inch above the level of the foam. And the forefoot's going to go all the way to the bottom until it stops. So I don't have to watch the forefoot. I'm going to watch that mark. Simultaneously push. It's important to do it simultaneously. Okay, that went all the way down. Now what I'm going to do, not all the way down, the forefoot went all the way down. Now I'm going to press each metatarsal head and on the toes. Make sure that's all the way to the bottom. Now what I'm going to do, again, make sure the foot's pointed straight ahead. And I'm going to push straight down on the instep till that mark is just level with the foam. That looks good. Okay, lift the foot straight up and out. That looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sight down the foam like that, and that way I can see that the fifth metatarsal head and the first are on the same plane. In other words, it's not twisted this way or that way. The foot's not twisted. We've got a good impression in the heel. We can see the shape of the heel, and the metatarsal heads are all on the same plane. That's a perfect impression. Okay, now we're going to go do the other foot. Let's, for the sake of the film, do that. Okay, now again I'm going to switch hands. This won't work see how the hand just fits perfectly over the foot that way. Simultaneously push down. Now I'm going to press each metatarsal head. Toes are all down. Now I'm going to press right on the top of the instep, and this time I'm going to watch the inside one. That's it. I didn't have to go very much. Okay, lift the foot straight up and out. Now I'm going to look at this one again. I'd say that looks really good. That completes the process. Just put everything back in the box the same way it came out and send it back.